Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Positive HR, How the Science of Positive Psychology Can Transform Your HR Practices, sponsored by MHS Assessments and presented by Sue Langley from Langley Group. Before we begin, I'd like to remind you that this webcast has been pre-approved for HRCI credit and can also be used for SHRM credit. Please be sure to attend the complete webcast in order to receive your credits. After the webcast, you'll receive an email from HR.com within 1 to 2 business days that will include your certification credit information. You can also log in to HR.com and go to your View My Credits page where you can see the credits that you've received. If you have any questions today for Sue Langley or for HR.com, please type them into the Questions tab on your GoToWebinar control panel and we will be sure to follow up with you. And it's my pleasure now to turn you over to Sue Langley.
Thank you so much, Sylvie. Thank you, everybody, for being here, whatever time of the day or night it is with you. It's always a nice way to start my day of doing a webinar. It's 6 a.m. now here in Sydney. So thank you all for joining me. I know there's a few more people that are jumping on as we speak. And we're going to focus on positive HR. So really about how we can bring positive psychology and emotional intelligence to life in an HR setting. And it's lovely to see so many people. And I have to admit, there's a few names that I recognize on here. So thank you for joining me. And I am going to make this a little bit interactive. So I would love if you can type any thoughts or questions in the question box as we go along, and I will try and answer them as we go. But also I will be doing a couple of activities where I definitely need you to type in the question box, otherwise the activities will not work. So we'll see how we go. So what it is that we're trying to do here today, we're looking at a positive approach to HR. What is it that we're looking at, and why do we feel that HR sometimes may not be as positive as it could be, and how might we transform it? Looking at some of the research behind it, and I'm going to introduce you to sort of one key theory around positive psychology that can give us some tools and tips about how we can build positive psychology into our HR practices. Bit of the business case, so how it can impact business results, and the benefits of a strengths-based approach. And I'm going to do that also linking into the emotional component as well, of why this emotional component is so important. So everything we do at the Langley Group tends to be focused on these three things. And some of you may have done webinars with us before. Some of you I may have met before. But what we focus on is the practical application of emotional intelligence, positive psychology, and neuroscience. So it's not just about the research and the theory and the frameworks, if you like. It's how do we make it fun? How do we make it practical? How do we make it real? So when we think about emotional intelligence, we're talking about the intelligent use of emotions. We all have emotions, so how do we use them in an intelligent way? Positive psychology, which some people seem to think is just being happy all the time, but hopefully you know a little bit better than that it's really about human flourishing. And a lot of what we do is about individual flourishing and well-being, but also teams and organizations. How do we bring teams, institutions, communities, etc., into that sort of flourishing state, as opposed to just fixing what's wrong? And then neuroscience. Personally, I like to put the neuroscience behind a lot of what we do. Now, we aren't going to focus on that in this session. We don't have time. I've actually just finished a 5-part webinar series on the neuroscience of happiness. And I have to admit, I'm very excited because in a week or so's time, or a couple of weeks' time, I am heading off to Venice to do 3 weeks of advanced neuroscience studies. I got my master's in neuroscience of leadership, but it's time to do some more studying, and I just happened to be able to go to Venice to do it, which I'm very excited about. So that's the approach that we're going to take, is this practical application of these three fields. How do we take the science? How do we take the evidence and make it real for everyday people? So I thought we'd start this by a bit of an activity. So this is where it's going to require you to do something. Now, obviously, I can't ask you all to speak to me because there's too many of you to take you all off mute. But I am going to ask you to type in the chat window. And if any of you have done a webinar with me before, you may recognize this activity. So can I just get a show of hands, if possible, if you've been on a webinar with me before? So if you can put your little hand up using the control panel, if you happen to have done a webinar with me before. Okay, well, not sure, thank you. Otherwise, there's no hands. Oh, goody. Okay, well, that means you won't recognize this. I've got lots of no's and no hands. Oh, one hand. Greg, thank you. Okay, Greg will, oh, Melissa, there's another one. Oh, Rita, oh, there's about 4 of you. Okay, so some of you, 4 of you may recognize this exercise, but go with me anyway. All right, so what we've got on the screen are 3 images. What I'd like you to think about here for a moment is you in your worst mood. Think about yourself in your worst mood, and is there an image that potentially relates to your worst mood? And I'm going to give you an example, and then I'm going to ask you to type in the chat window or the question window and type your answers. Okay, thanks, Shelley. I've got your comment here. Wonderful. So when we think about these pictures, I'm going to choose the horse in the middle, and I'm going to tell you why, and I'd like you to say why as well on your chat, on your question window. So I'm choosing the horse in the middle as my worst mood because you can see the blur in the background. And when I'm in my worst mood, I feel like the world is moving too fast, I feel overwhelmed, and it's fuzzy. It's almost like I can't think clearly. It's almost like there is so much going on, but I couldn't actually tell you what it is. But also, probably the picture of the horse's face as well is probably representative of how I am in my worst mood, is looking a bit sort of terrified or horrified or stuck. And you can see the rigidity of the horse, obviously, of a carousel. There's no actual movement. And sometimes when I'm in my worst mood, I feel I'm more rigid, I'm more abrupt in my thinking and my responses. So I'm probably less approachable to be around. So can I ask you to share your thoughts of your worst mood? Some of you are also saying the horse. Fabulous. So why? Oh, okay, I've got some good words here. So scattered, the chaos, fantastic, frenetic. Oh, the horse in the middle is popular. Lisa says, I can't think straight, can't seem to keep up. Okay, and the red or orange colors. Okay, Anna, thank you. The horse, because it seems to represent fight or flight, the red zone. Okay, Lisa says, I didn't even realize it was a pretty horse at first. Okay. Oh, going in circles. I like that, Alicia. Fantastic. Ah, somebody's got something different. Thank you, Chioma. The footprints on the sand, I feel like I'm alone and lost. Wonderful. Okay, we've got more words. Overwhelmed, frustrated. Okay, the dark grey cloud. Thank you, Nancy. The horse again, things are moving very quickly, not enough hours in the day to accomplish everything that's needed. Okay, Angela's cranky. Okay, we've also got chaotic, anxious, frightened, hurried. Okay, crazy carnival. Okay, confused in your worst mood. Thank you, Phyllis, that's fantastic. Erica says, I feel like I'm stuck on a track but out of control. Okay, worst mood about rushed, fantastic. Also the need to be alone again from the beach picture. Okay, like it's on fire, red, fiery, lack of focus. Oh, some good words coming through here. Detached, wild. Some people, okay, they're number 1, want to be left alone. Wonderful, angry, chaotic, overwhelmed, dizzying. The horse looks scared, yes. Okay, footsteps alone, fantastic. Overwhelmed, overwhelming, going round and round, spinning, can't think straight, not relaxing, moving too fast. Oh, wonderful. Some great words here. I'm sorry I can't read them all out. But we look like we're getting a bit of a theme here of feeling perhaps overwhelmed, hectic, out of control, stuck, rigid. We're not particularly calm in our worst mood, but also that element of, yeah, footprints. There's no one there to assist. We're alone. We're disconnected. We sometimes find we want to pull away from other people when we're in our worst mood. We might not be able to think clearly. We might feel agitated, or we might just feel shut down and isolated. So thank you. That was fabulous. Lots of great, great responses. Yes, and I agree, Tricia. The horse can be fun as well, and I do sometimes pick it for my best mood. All right, so now let's think about your best mood. That's what we're going to move on to next. So thinking about your best mood, can you describe what you are like in your best mood? And again, is there an image that sort of more closely depicts you in your best mood? And I'm choosing the one on the right because it's beautiful. I can see to the horizon. I can see where I'm heading. Everything seems clear and in focused when I'm in my best mood. But I also love how the footprints are coming straight towards the camera as if someone knows where they're going. And when I'm in my best mood, I feel I've got clarity of thinking. I can see the strategic. I can see what's possible. But I'd also like to imagine that what you can't see in the picture is lots of other people, lots of other footprints coming with me. Because when I'm in my best mood, I seem to be able to inspire people to come with me through that sense of direction and clarity and the energy that I feel. Other people seem to want to join me on the journey. So tell me about you. Okay, best mood. Let's see what we've got. So some people wanting the beach, some people wanting the excitement of the sun behind the clouds. Okay, calm, positive, happy, calm and centered, wonderful. And yes, we might still be alone, but it's probably a different feeling to the aloneness of our worst mood. Okay, wonderful. We have the horse again, excited, bright colors, fun. Absolutely, I'm filled with energy when I'm in my best mood. Okay, reflective, calm, peaceful, tranquil, serene, focused, wonderful. I love those words. Thanks, Debbie. Focused, curious, relaxed. Okay, beach is the favorite place. Okay, clear thinking, wonderful, calm, quiet, even amounts of dark and light. Okay, Angela also says the horse because it's energized. Okay, somebody else talking about feeling light-hearted, energetic, clarity, relaxed, open, positive. Okay, clear, absolutely, no busy agenda. Okay, walking straight ahead, knowing where I'm heading, absolutely. The ray of sunshine lighting the way, being supportive. Thank you, Kimberly. That's a really important one. Being supportive and expansive. Okay, serene, calming, optimistic, being in my happy place, relaxed, calm, beautiful. Okay, sense of calm, sense of quiet. Also brightening other people's day with the sun coming out. Laurie, I love that one. Thank you. Yes, bright new day. Thank you, Shelley. Relaxing sunset on water, my happy place. Wonderful. Okay, Ken, I love your comment. Photo on the left, mission accomplished. Absolutely. I don't know about you, but I'm way more productive when I'm in my best mood. So yes, energized, focused, driven. I'll give you a few more words here. A relaxed glass of wine. Thanks, Sonia. Walking on the beach. Okay, footprints. I do my best thinking at the beach. Absolutely. Okay, wonderful. The sun ray, because there's rays of hope. And we've got more around focus, serene, content, strong, fantastic. Storm has passed, all is going well. Okay, purpose, joyful, unperturbed, wonderful. So again, think about you in your best mood. Think about some of those words that you just heard or that you typed. You in your best mood. You've probably got a sense of being relaxed yet focused. Probably some of you might be calm, but some of you might be energized in your best mood. Best mood can have a whole range of energy to it. But we're probably able to think more clearly. We're probably more optimistic, more hopeful, more sure of our direction, absolutely more productive, more energized to actually get things done when we're in our best mood. So the reason I asked you to do that, and thank you so much for all of your wonderful comments, is I wanted to connect that to one of the key theories in positive psychology. So what you can see on the screen here is Barbara Fredrickson's Broaden and Build theory. And some of you may be familiar with her work. Barbara Fredrickson is probably considered to be one of the top sort of 3 positive psychology researchers in the world at the moment in this area of positive emotion. And she spent about 30 years really exploring the impact of positive emotions on a range of different areas. So her theory is what's known as the Broaden and Build theory. And the Broaden and Build theory basically means that, excuse me, positive emotions help broaden our thought action repertoire and they build our personal resources. So what does that actually mean? Well, it basically means positive emotions help broaden our thinking. And if we look at what we know from neuroscience, we understand why that is. When you're in a best mood, if you like, there are more areas of your brain that are active. than when you're in a negative emotional state. So there's literally more activity in different parts of your brain, which is why often you can find yourself being more creative or more solution focused, or ideas sometimes pop into your head. So it broadens our ability to think. It also broadens our ability to act. So we're more likely to get stuff done. And I think it was Ken who sort of indicated mission accomplished. When we are in our best mood, we are way more likely to power through our to-do list. We are way more likely to get off our bottom and go and do stuff when we're in our best mood. And it also helps build our resources. So if you look at the little blobs around, you can see a range of resources there. We're going to start at the bottom right with psychological resources. So the research over the last 30 or so years has found that positive emotions help build our psychological resources. So what does that mean? It means things like hope, resilience, optimism. We can handle change more because we're more able to tackle, if you like, things that are changing and have hope for the future, be more resilient when adversity hits. It also means it helps develop what they call our sense of identity and goal orientation. So again, as I said, you are way more likely to get stuff done when you're in your best mood. But also from a confidence perspective, think about yourself. You're way more confident when you're in your best mood. You're way more likely to be able to stand up and have belief in yourself when you're experiencing positive emotions. So it builds our psychological resources. Now, all of you, I'm sure, know whatever organization you work in, if you're in a specific HR role, that's so important these days, the psychological resources of having people who can handle themselves through periods of change. When you've got transformation going on in an organization, when you've got challenges, changes are constant, we need people to be resilient and optimistic and be able to handle things, whether it is restructures, whether there are redundancies, whether it's a change of direction, change of leadership, etc. We need people to have those psychological resources. Okay, then we have social resources, and social resources is kind of what many of you have alluded to in your comments. When we're in our worst mood, we often want to be alone. We feel disconnected or isolated. We want to pull away from people. But when we're in our best mood, we're way more approachable. Now, we might like being alone, like the footsteps down the beach. And I know myself, I love being down the beach and sort of thinking as I walk along. But as far as when I'm in my best mood, I am much more approachable. I am much more helpful, much more supportive, much more engaged with people when I'm in my best mood. When I'm in my worst mood, I just want to pull away from other people. I want to pull the duvet over my head and make the world go away. So again, our best moods influence our social resources. We are much more likely to make new bonds, build new relationships, as well as solidify existing bonds. And any of you, if you've ever been to a networking function, you will know what I mean. If you are in your worst mood when you go along to a networking event, I can guarantee what you're really thinking about is how quickly you can get out of there. You're not thinking about chatting to people and building new relationships. You're thinking about how quickly you can move on, where you need to stand, how you just sort of need to slowly sip your last glass of wine, and then you've got about 2 more minutes and you reckon you can make an exit. So when we're in our best mood, we're much more likely to build our social resources. And again, think about that from a business perspective. If we want people to collaborate, collaboration and removal of silos is a critical thing for many organizations. Well, guess what? People are way more likely to be kind, altruistic, helpful, and collaborative when they're experiencing more positive emotions. Okay, our next one, intellectual resources, again, critical from a business perspective. We know that when people are experiencing more positive emotions, they are better at taking in new information and learning and paying attention. We know that people are better at problem solving and also persisting when problems occur. We know from a lot of research that people are much more creative and innovative. And I have to laugh sometimes. Many organizations are now wanting to build in innovation. They want to add the value of innovation, or they've got a company program around innovation. But I always say to them, there's no point just telling people to be innovative. If you've got a culture of fear of failure or anxiety or stress or pressure, there's no way people are going to suddenly be innovative. We've got to get the positive culture right first so that people actually have the space to be innovative. And I did my master's thesis particularly around neuroscience of creativity and what happens in the brain when people are showing those elements of creativity and innovation. And we don't do it when we're stressed, under pressure, overwhelmed, etc. Okay, and the last one, I love this one, physical resources. We know that when people experience more positive emotions, it helps all sorts of physical elements. Your grip strength increases when you're in a best mood. Your cardiovascular health and what they call your vagus nerve. So your vagal tone, if you like, that is your vagus nerve that runs from your brain to your major organs. Vagal tone is a bit like muscle tone. And when you're in a best mood, it works more effectively. And I think of the vagus nerve as providing, if you like, a communication conduit between your brain and your major organs. And basically, in a best mood, it works more effectively. Things like coordination, your immune system is boosted, your digestion improves when you're in a best mood. And again, we've had many of our clients who, through embedding some of these positive HR elements, have found that their sick leave has reduced. One client in particular, their sick leave reduced by 40%. So again, think about the financial implications of having a reduction in sick leave, though. Thank you, Tamara, for your comment. All right, so that gives you a bit of the science behind it. And I love Barbara Fredrickson's Broaden and Build theory because it gives you some tools and tips really about what you might then do in order to build a culture where positive emotions can flourish. And it sounds like a simple thing to do, and yet many organizations, if you were to walk around offices, you will probably see more expression of negative emotion than you will positive emotion. So what do we mean by that when we say positive emotion? It is not about just being happy all the time. Happy is one emotion, and it's the first one on our list, which is happy and joyous. That's just one emotion. There are many emotions that we can foster from a climate perspective. We can foster things like gratitude and appreciation. Do we have HR processes and procedures that actually give people the opportunity to both formally and informally express gratitude? Do we have a culture that encourages it? And I'll give you an example. We run a lot of positive strengths-based leadership programs across a number of global organizations. And we have an exercise that we do in one of our programs when we talk about gratitude, where we ask people to take their mobile phones, find a partner, hand over their phone on video mode, and basically they have to record each other delivering a gratitude or an appreciation message to someone in their team. So I would give my phone to you, you would give your phone to me, then you would record me while I say what I want to say to somebody in my team, and I record you saying something nice and appreciating someone in your team. Then we hand the phones back and we send them. And I remember the very first time that I asked a group to do this, and they were a group of fairly senior leaders. And one lady, several people looked horrified at the idea of actually having to do it there and then. But one lady said to me, she sort of came out of her mouth without thinking. She said, "Oh my goodness, they're going to think I've got a terminal disease if I do that." And I smiled and said, "What sort of culture have you created that people think you're going to die just because you're saying thank you?" And of course, she smiled, she did it, she was brave, she was uncomfortable, she did the message. And ironically, in the group of 25, she was actually the first person to get a message back from her team member who she'd sent the video to. And the message back was, "You're the best boss ever." It wasn't, "Oh my God, are you dying?" So again, do we have systems, processes, support, and the right culture where it's okay to express our gratitude and appreciation? And it sounds simple, but you'd be surprised how many people are mortified by the idea of sending a gratitude video to somebody. Serenity. Serenity is some of the words that you were commenting on around your best mood, is that content, peace, serene type of emotion, where we're feeling like things are running smoothly, we're relaxed, we're in that more serene space that we can just stop and focus and think. Interest and curiosity. Some of you may know from a positive psychology perspective, when we look at emotions, interest and curiosity is a critical emotion if we want to progress and be innovative. A lot of times through our education, we're teaching people to be critiquing. We actually encourage people throughout masters and PhDs to be critical. And yet actually one of the key things that is linked to not only neuroscience and brain development, but also high levels of well-being is curiosity and interest in the world. So actually encouraging that sense of curiosity about what's possible is important. Then we have hope and optimism. That's a fairly obvious one, but again, do we have tools in place that we can teach people or encourage people around hope and optimism? Pride is another one. Again, in America, same as in Australia, one of the top strengths on what's called the Strengths Profile Assessment actually comes out most frequently is pride. And again, this links to a sense of meaning in what we do and then pride in what we're delivering. Amusement, which is about laughter and having fun. Inspiration, again, we're all looking sometimes for an inspirational leader to sort of draw us forward, but can we take inspiration from a number of different areas of our work? Awe, there is less research around awe, but again, awe is a sense of wonder, a sense of, again, linking to meaning of perhaps being connected to something bigger. And love, being connected to people. And again, we haven't got time in this session to go into the importance of the relationship piece, but we know that relationships is one of the number one factors linked to well-being these days. Well, not these days, in human beings in general. Even if you look cross-culturally, having connected relationships is actually one of the critical components of high levels of well-being. So when we think about what sort of emotions we want to foster through our HR practices, we can think of a range, not just, oh, everyone's got to be happy. If you have any questions, please shoot them through. But what I want to look at now is then linking it to some of the things we know from a leadership perspective. So some of you, I'm sure, are familiar with these 10 components that have sort of more recently come out from the World Economic Forum, of the 10 skills that are deemed to be required when we reach 2020, particularly from a leadership perspective. And if we think about these, it's the first time that emotional intelligence has reached the echelons of being in the top 10. But the thing that I find quite interesting is if you consider emotional intelligence, and some of you may know more about this than others, but emotional intelligence is purely the intelligent use of emotions. I've spent 15, 16 years in this space. And when I look at the power of emotions, we actually know that not only is emotional intelligence one of the bullet points on here, but if you look at now which ones have come up in bold, these are the things that emotions are critical for. So again, we've already just mentioned with the Broaden and Build theory, problem solving. We know that emotions influence problem solving. And if you've read things like Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow, you'll know that that emotional component, that intuition, that fast thinking, if you like, is part of our thinking and problem solving. Creativity, all the research will tell you that people are more creative when they're experiencing more positive emotions. Even people who are deemed some of our more creative geniuses over the years that may have had bipolar, what the research has found is that people tend to have their more creative periods when they're coming up into the manic phase. They don't have it while they're in the down phase. So again, emotions play a part in that. Anything to do with other people, emotions are critical. So emotional intelligence isn't just point number 6. It's actually things that include actually 9 of those particular areas. Cognitive flexibility, negotiation. Anybody who's ever negotiated know that there's emotions in the room when you're negotiating. So when we think about emotional intelligence, we tend to focus on the MSCEIT Model, which is published by MHS. And this particular framework we use, perceiving, using, understanding and managing emotions, is what's known as a pure model of emotional intelligence. And we use it specifically because it is a pure model. Others out there, such as the Goleman or the Hay model, that's actually what's known as a mixed model. And when we think about this, again, linking to HR, which we're going to connect to in a moment, it will help us if we can actually consider how we're generating emotions in each of these areas and the impact that it's having. So what would it be like if I walked into your organization? What emotions would I pick up on? How are those emotions being used, if you like, and influencing thinking? Where are those emotions coming from? And then how are they managed? And I'll give you a lovely example of an organization that we do work with. We've worked with them for about 4 years, and I'm really proud of them. Their culture scores on Glassdoor have increased significantly, even in the Pacific zone, in particular, where we've been working during a time of massive transformation, 30% loss of headcount, and a complete shift of the business. Their engagement and culture scores have been increasing here in the Pacific zone, and we've been working with them for about 4 years around positive strengths-based leadership. And thankfully now the rest of the global organization is actually wanting to do what we're doing in the Pacific zone, because they've realized the impact that it can have. But 3 or 4 years ago, this organization, they wanted to embed a culture of innovation, and the president came out from Europe to visit. And he was asked about, being innovative and the fear of failure and those sorts of things, which they definitely had a culture of at the time. And he gave a brilliant answer, which I now can't remember, because his last sentence, which was half joking, was, besides, if you fail, you'll be fired. And that was what people were left with. Oops. And that was actually the emotion that was sort of driving why people would not actually be more innovative, because they felt this whole fear of failure and the threat element. So shifting that emotional culture has been critical. For those of you familiar with the MSCEIT, you'll know that there is a particular framework where you get an overall score, and then you get an experiential element and a strategic element. I'm not going to go into this now, but for those of you who would like to know more, please let us know. More than happy to send you a sample report. And if you happen to be in London in May and you'd like to join me for getting certified in this, please do. I have to admit, a lot more people are now getting certified in the MSCEIT tool, because they really want to build it more effectively into their practices. And you can also then get trained up in how to use some of our programs around this, the practical elements and the activities. So please let me know if there's anything else you'd like on that one. But what I want to do now is link it to the HR component and say, well, we know that people do their best work when they're in a positive frame of mind, and therefore positive strengths-based leadership is essential throughout all areas of the business. And the reason I've used the sunflower is what's known as the heliotropic effect. And you've probably come across this. I know if you've ever been to Tuscany or somewhere like that and you see the sunflowers, they'll actually follow the sun. And that's what they talk about in positive organizational scholarship, if you like, which is a lot of Kim Cameron's work does things in that, as far as that heliotropic effect, that human organisms, amongst other natural organisms, are designed to follow the light, to follow the sun, to move towards the positive. So our job from an HR perspective is to build that positive into everything we do. And you can see some key things here around positive practices, positive recruitment, positive performance to create flourishing organizations. And there are many things that can fit into here. And I've given you a few different ideas, not an exhaustive list, but some key things under positive practices, under positive recruitment and positive performance. Now, obviously, I would love to go through all of these, but we're only here for an hour, so I can't do that. And Tamara said she'd like some more information. Wonderful, my dear. I will make sure that when I get the information with everybody's contact information, I will send that on to you. So let's think about a couple of key areas that might help us around our positive practices. And we've got something called a Positive HR Toolkit, which is being launched very, very soon. You're one of the few people that know about this at the moment, which is a whole series of modules around building positive psychology and emotional intelligence into the HR life cycle, if you like. Everything from the beginning, if you like, all the way through to the end of someone's journey. And if we think about all of the different things, we know when people are recruited to do what they love, there is less energy that has to go into motivating them to do it. So we need to be recruiting from a strengths-based perspective. we need to be looking, and you can see there's a whole bunch of hexagons coming up on your screen, that when we think about recruitment, it needs to be everything from starting off with knowing our brand of what we stand for, and then understanding, creating a role portrait. We call them a role portrait rather than a job description. And embedded in that role portrait is some key strengths that perhaps are ideal for this role, to give people a bit of a feel for it. Considering diversity and strengths rather than just necessarily looking at diversity targets, but what's the diversity of strengths that we need within our team? And the thing that I love is if you focus on diversity of strengths, you will usually get diversity of the package that those strengths comes in, if you like. So really looking, when we're thinking about diversity and inclusion, what are the diversity of strengths we need in our teams? Looking at the usual things about reviewing, matching advertising around that diversity space and strengths, doing strengths-based positive assessments and strengths-based interviews, whether it's phone or in person. And then going through, do they meet the team? So we have a thing in our business when we recruit people, we deliberately bring people into the office and we get them wandering around and maybe having a cup of coffee and lunch or something like that, so that we can see how they fit in our environment. Our environment here is very unique in the fact that we don't have a corporate office. We have, if you like, a very large home office. So it is very much like a normal house. There are cats floating around. There are people sometimes that are staying overnight, so therefore they might be trundling down in their dressing gown in the morning. People wander down the beach in their morning or lunch break, etc. So it's a very specific environment, and we want to make sure people understand the culture of what we do. And then, of course, you've got your candidate portrait review, reference checking, etc. But we can build positive psychology into all of these things in a number of ways. And again, we need to think about the language that's used. Why do I want to work for you? Why do I want to work in your organization? How are your job descriptions, your advertising, your induction elements stated as far as the language that's used? And we get taught a lot of simple things, you know, don't say storeman, say store person or something, you know, what's the language as far as that's concerned. We get taught a lot of things to do with diversity as far as, you know, names. Some people are hiding universities now to remove some of the unconscious bias we have, or names are taken off graduate lists, etc. But we need to think about the language that we use throughout all of our processes. And I'm going to use this as a specific example of the practical element. And I'd love some of your thoughts around this. So when we look at some of the language, we need to consider the language that's used in our documentation. And it sounds really simple, but I have to admit, we're often brought in to review people's policies, procedures, induction manuals, etc. When someone joins our organization, we have what's known as the Langley Group Way. And it's a document that is designed to tell you what you can and can't do around here. But we really have tried to embed positive language throughout. So I'd like you to consider some of the words that are on the screen. Prithi, you are on the chat screen to respond to my questions. You have just posted and I can see your comments. So wherever you just typed, keep typing there. Thanks, Prithi. So look at the words on the screen and consider those for a moment. How do you feel if you get told any of these? Think about things like you can't. How do you feel when someone says you can't do something? How do you feel when someone says you have to do something? And just share with me what some of those sort of words conjure up. Okay, Tamara, thank you. When you use these words, you actually take away the chance of empowering your employees. They're negative, limited, absolutely. Yeah, a bit dejected, defensive, fantastic, Lisa, thank you. Brilliant. So think about that. If I tell you you can't do something, psychologically, your brain goes, yes, I can. If I tell you you have to do something, you'll often go, no, I don't. If you hear the word unfortunately, you know something negative is coming. Okay, and as Shelley said, depending on who says it, I may be more determined to do it, absolutely. Think about the word but. If I say to you, I really enjoyed your party on Saturday night, but you know something negative. Okay, wonderful. So Tricia says, unfortunately, is a cop-out. Absolutely, they shut you down. Now, this sounds really simple, and yet for many organizations, I can go in and I can read their company policies, procedures, etc., and it is filled with negative language. I remember one of my first clients was a call center, and this was a long time ago, and they asked me to come and do some work, and the operations manager wanted basically everything cured in a 2-hour session. But I said, look, beforehand, can I just come and sit in on the call center and listen? And it was filled with these words. Oh, sorry, you can't do that. That's not possible. Oh, unfortunately, that's not available. Oh, you can do this, but there's no seats, etc., etc. It was all of this negative language. You're kind of ready to slash your wrists before you've even started. So again, one of the simple tools around building positive psychology into your HR practices is go through your policies and procedures and look at the language and reframe it. Now, when I say reframe it, I don't mean suddenly telling them that they can do things. We have a rule of no jeans. When you're facilitating, you can't wear denim jeans, if you like. That's just one of the things that we have. But you can phrase that in a positive way. You don't have to put, you can't wear jeans. You can put the things you can do, the possibilities. You can say, jeans are not accepted. This is what you can do. So you can state the facts of what people can't do, but try and avoid using words like you can't. Okay, Kathleen says our employee handbook work rules have been turned around to say you agree to instead of the negative. Fantastic. And you're absolutely right. She says it's been received in a more positive light. It sounds really simple, but the psychology of language is really powerful. And I'll give you an example. There are two questions on the screen, and this was a particular research study where people were asked this question, and one group were asked the one on the left, one group were asked the one on the right, and then they measured from each group how many people voted. Now, what do you think? Which of those statements, the one on the left or the one on the right, led to more people voting? Okay, wonderful. We've pretty much got a consensus here. Most of you are absolutely spot on. The one on the right led to over 25% increase in voting. Now think about the language. How important is it to be a voter tomorrow? This is me. I am a voter. If I have said I'm a voter, I'm going to vote. How important is it to vote tomorrow takes it away from me. It's important for people to vote tomorrow. People should vote tomorrow, but it's not me. And it sounds really simple. Fantastic. Celeste says it's an identity to be a voter. Absolutely. So they're absolutely right. So Barbara says it's about being, not doing. And again, you can see from these two statements, they are such small changes, and yet think about the impact with this particular research. There was a 25% increase in the group that was asked the question on the right who actually voted the following day. And Laurie, you're absolutely fine for being late, my dear. Totally understand. All right, so let's think of a couple of other things around this. Positive leadership. We do, all of our programs are built on positive strengths-based leadership. We have everything from short one-day workshops or webinars that really look around leading self, around positive well-being, creating flourishing. One of our signature programs is called Flourishing Employees, which is a one-day well-being program. We then do works around flourishing managers, which looks at how to help the managers lead themselves. We have a 2-day positive leadership program that really builds all of this emotional space around this framework. And then we also have our signature program, which is a 6-day accelerated leadership program over a period of several months. And the thing that I love is, yes, it takes a while, same as it does to change any culture, but it changes the culture that people sit in. It changes what they do. And I'll give you some wonderful examples that we've had. We had one particular gentleman, to his credit, he came off the end of our, we call it Ignite with this particular client. And he came up at the end of it, and he was determined to do everything he'd been taught. And he was a very senior leader, lots of experience, but we present it very much differently. It's very much about the emotions, positive psychology. It's not, we don't teach functional elements of leadership like decision making, execution, planning and briefing, 8-step models and those sorts of things. We teach the psychology. And he was determined to use everything that he'd learnt. And his engagement scores over a 1-year period went from 34 to 74. Now that is huge. And think about, again, the financial implications of having 74% highly engaged people within an organization. When you think about positive leadership and the impact that it can have, one of the things that gives me the most gratification from some of our participants is they say, I'm a better father, I'm a better mother, I'm a better partner. And for me, that's really important, because we know if you're better at home, the way you show up at work is impacted as well. So again, there's lots more I'd like to talk about around positive leadership. We do have a 5-part series on our website. If you do want to listen to the recordings from a 5-part webinar series we ran last year, so you're more than welcome to jump on that, or just drop me an email. But again, I want you to think about the implications of this from a reward perspective. I'm going to share with you a sort of a quick amalgamation of a range of studies that you might want to consider from your remuneration, any bonuses, performance review elements that you might do. A series of studies were done in a sort of a manufacturing environment, hundreds of people in a factory element that had to hit certain daily targets of the number of things they produced. And the particular study looked at 1 week, people were incentivized by, if you hit your daily target, you get a pizza voucher. They wanted to actually give pizzas, because they wanted the smell. But thanks, John, I've got your message. But they thought they couldn't do that from health and safety, so people got a pizza voucher, $25 pizza voucher. The second scenario was money. So the next week, if you hit your target, you get money, so $25, whatever it was. And the third scenario, the following week, was if you hit your target, you get a pat on the back and sense of recognition from the boss. Now, would anybody like to guess which scenario, the pizza, the money, or the pat on the back from the boss, actually led to the highest increase in people hitting their daily target? I'm just going to have a look and see what's coming through. I've lost my little mouse. There it is. Oh, okay. Oh, we've got different. Oh, we've got all 3 coming through here. Okay, well, I'm going to tell you, and this is what I love about this study, is people knew in advance what they were getting. They were told in advance what they were getting. But for those of you who says the pat on the back from the boss, you are absolutely right. People were more likely to hit their daily target when they knew they were going to get the recognition. The recognition, the pat on the back, the boss coming down and saying, congratulations, well done. Now, it sounds daft, but again, everything we know about the human brain and the social connection indicates why this would be true. We are designed, we are wired to be socially connected. So having somebody tell us we're a good person, well done, you've done well, you are worthwhile, what you've done makes a difference, actually means something to us. Interestingly, some of you are absolutely right. The second one was pizza. Oh, the citation, Corey. I can't remember exactly. If you can send me an email, I will send it through to you. But if you read the book, oh, it's a little yellow book. It's too early in the morning, can't remember. Dan Arley, I want to say, and it's not called Nudge, but that's what's coming into my mind. Send me an email, Corey, and I will send you the details. All right, I've only got a few more minutes, so there's so many more things I want to get through. When we think about positive reinforcement, and again, a lot of our clients, we're doing a lot of work around this positive reinforcement, is the process of recognizing and responding favorably to desired behavior in an effort to encourage its continuance. And again, thinking about all the different ways within your HR practices you can encourage this. It sounds really simple, and a lot of people, especially old school people, will say, why should I praise somebody for just doing their job? My answer to that question is, well, if you want them to keep doing it well, why wouldn't you? So again, do we have things in place? And there's so many different apps and technology things these days that you can actually use to reinforce the values of the organization, to positively engage people. That is a form of social recognition. Obviously, apps are one thing. I'm a big fan of face-to-face and human interaction myself, but apps will still help. And the last thing that I do want to leave you with is the strengths-based approach. Again, everything we do, both in our organization and for our clients, is based on a strengths-based element. So this is a definition from Alex Linley, who is a bit of a guru in the strengths-based approach. And it says a strengths is a pre-existing capacity. Pre-existing does not mean you were born with it. It just means prior to now. Sorry, I just love Teresa's comment. If the boss came and gave you cash and a pizza party, it would be awesome. I love that. And Shelley's comment, I like the no and low cost positive reinforcement ideas. Absolutely. And Shelley, you're absolutely right. Budget is limited. And I think that that's a really important thing. We do a lot of work with schools around positive education. And a lot of the schools we want to work with are those in the lower socioeconomic. So we look at the smallest thing you can do to make the biggest difference. And believe me, there are so many small free ways that you can make a big difference. Okay, so back to strengths. Pre-existing means prior to now, not innate or you're born with it or like a personality trait. For a particular way of behaving, thinking, or feeling that is authentic and energizing. And this is the critical component, authentic and energizing. Not just I'm good at, but it energizes me as well. And it's about optimal functioning, development, and performance. And I'm going to share with you one particular study. I'd love to spend more time, but there's one particular study that I love around the strengths-based approach. And it is so simple to embed in your HR practices, both from an initial recruitment perspective of embedding strengths-based interviewing, all the way through to assessment, development, and even exit and outplacement. But this particular study, it was done by this Corporate Leadership Council, which is based in London, part of the CEB, and it had nearly 20,000 subjects, if you like, as part of it. And some of you may have come across it. If you haven't, you can just Google it, or again, send me an email and we will get that to you. Basically, the particular study looked at the change in performance over a 12-month period based on how people were performance reviewed. The purple bar indicates emphasis on performance weaknesses. Now, you might initially think, why on earth would you emphasize performance weaknesses? Thank you, Erica. It's called payoff. Thank you. The hidden logic that shapes our motivations. Thank you. Okay, sorry, back to the performance weaknesses. So you might initially think, why on earth would you emphasize performance weaknesses? And yet this is what we've been doing in most organizations for 100 years. And it basically goes something like this. You're my boss. I come into your office for my annual performance review and you say, hi, Sue, these are your strengths and these are your development opportunities. And we put some goals in place around my development opportunities. And that's what we usually do. That's what many performance reviews have been doing over the years. Thankfully, a lot of organizations are moving away from this now. That actually led to a drop in performance of 26.8%. So if you want performance to continue going down, feel free to continue that methodology. The orange bar is emphasis on performance strengths. So this is me coming into your office and you saying, hi, Sue, these are your strengths, these are your weaknesses. If we need to get your weaknesses to a certain level to be competent in your role, we will, but we're going to focus the next 12 months on really setting some goals around your strengths. That led to an increase in performance of 36.4%. Now, what I'd like you to consider is why, and we're going to come back, if you like, to where we started with our Broaden and Build theory. If I have to focus on my performance weaknesses, the things I am not good at, consider how I'm going to feel for 12 months. All of those worst mood comments you made. I'm going to feel dejected, useless, hopeless, not confident. I might feel anxious, overwhelmed, irritated, because I've got to focus on the things I am not good at. That tends to lead to a drop in performance because from an emotional perspective, I am down and I'm not performing at my best. And what they've found is when I do that, yes, my weaknesses will improve. I will get better at some of my weaknesses. But what they've found is that my strengths plateau or start to drop. Whereas if you get me to spend 12 months focusing on my performance strengths, still acknowledging the weaknesses that are critical for my role, but I spend time focusing on my strengths. Think about all those awesome words you came across with best mood. I feel engaged, energized, calm. I feel centered. I feel confident. I feel useful. I feel valued. All of those really cool words. What they found is my strengths increase, but because of that broaden and build theory, creating an upward spiral, I actually get better at my weaknesses as well. And again, if there's anything you would like on that, please let me know. If you want to know more about, this wasn't there when I came into it. If you want to know more about our MSCEIT certification, then please, this is where you can go to. If you want to know more about our Positive HR Toolkit, this is launching very soon. Just jump on to positivehrtoolkit.com.au and you can register your interest. And as soon as we have more information, we will send that through to you. But if you want anything in general, please shoot me an email. Our website is langleyGroup.com.au. My email is just sue@langleyGroup.com.au. So if there's anything I can do for any of you, I've pretty much only got 2 or 3 minutes left and I could talk about this all day. There are like days and days. We run a diploma of positive psychology and wellbeing that runs for 6 whole days, and even that's not enough. So if there's anything else you need, please shoot me an email and I'm more than happy to help. But I will answer any last questions if there are any that come up. Thank you, everybody. If you do have to jump off to attend another meeting, please do. But my questions, performance evaluations, what type of value do I believe they have? Look, Tamara, I don't believe a lot of the performance evaluations that we create are actually helpful. And if you look at the research from a neuroscience perspective, there is research that says at least 40% of those 360 style evaluations actually make things worse. 30% make no difference and 30% make it better. The interesting thing that makes a difference is often qualitative. And the thing that seems to make a difference, which I'm sure you know, is the conversations that come with it, which is why we do a lot of training around how to have a strengths-based performance conversation so that there are regular performance conversations happening with the leader, not just an evaluation. But we also know from something called the Pygmalion effect is if you believe I am not good, I will lower my performance to match your expectations. If I believe that you think I am good and I'm an exceptional performer, I will raise my performance to meet your expectations. Okay, so Shelley says she'd like to know more about the Positive HR Toolkit. Please jump on and we will send you some more information. Thank you, Tara. Thank you for everybody. I wish I could spend more time with you, but thank you so much for your energy. And please email me, sue@langleyGroup.com.au, and I promise I will get back to you with anything you need. Thank you so much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you so much to Sue Langley from the Langley Group and MHS for sponsoring this wonderful webcast today. And just a few reminders for our attendees. If you'd like to view this webcast again, the archive recording and slides will be available for up to 7 days for our free members. And if you're a recertification member or an HR Genius member, then you have unlimited access to our archives. All webcast credits are stored in your HR.com account. Watch for your HR.com email to arrive within 1 to 2 business days, and that will contain your certification credit information. Your feedback is important to us, so please take a moment to fill out the exit survey that will appear on your screen once the webcast is ended. This concludes our webcast. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much.